Why there's no inventory here in Luzerne County, how long it's going to last, and what brought us to this point. Explained in this video here on Living in Luzerne County. Hey friends, Chris Madden here. I utilize systems and technology to adapt to an ever-changing market here in Luzerne County. Let's dive in. Here in Luzerne County, much like the rest of the United States as a whole, we've seen a significant inventory shortage in the residential real estate market. While some of the conditions that affect the United States as a whole also affect Luzerne County, there's also some specific things that affected the inventory here in Luzerne County that may not have impacted as greatly throughout the United States. We're going to go through all these here in this video. We're also going to show you what to expect in the future in the next coming years and what you can do to overcome these limitations. So we have to go back in time a little bit. Prior to the 2008 housing crash, home builders were cranking out houses left and right. When the crash happened in 2008, a lot of them went bankrupt or lost their shirt. This created a kind of fear that kept in their heads of these home builders as the recovery started around 2011. So once the recovery started, home building kind of ramped back up, but it ramped back up to a lower extent. Builders were much more cautious about creating an overabundance of supply, and therefore they were creating less homes. Now this seems very logical and normal, except for the fact that from the recovery to when COVID started, more families were being created than homes were being built, to the tune of 2.3 million homes. So prior to COVID, we were already at a shortfall of about 2.3 million homes of inventory. And that's why COVID alone isn't to blame for the current housing shortage here in America. So now since COVID, when the inventory shortage has been very apparent and home builders have wanted to ramp up production, they have been severely limited by the lack of skilled workers available to help ramp up production. So even though their demand is apparent and the home builders understand that there's a demand built up, they can't create enough houses fast enough because of the lack of skilled laborers here in America. Another factor that these home builders are facing is there's so much economic uncertainty as to what the next couple years are going to look like. It's hampering home builders' confidence to start cranking out houses at too fast of a rate due to this uncertainty coupled with the high mortgage rates. Factor number two affecting the home inventory here in Luzerne County is COVID. Obviously, COVID changed so many facets of life here in America and throughout the world, but especially here in Luzerne County. One way COVID changed things is obviously the work from home, the remote work, and the ability for people to move out of these high cost of living city metropolitan areas and move out to other locations because they were now able to work from home. And this shift in work culture, coupled with the fact that now 3-4 years post the start of COVID, a lot of these companies are now shifting to permanent work from home, has shifted the dynamic that here in the United States, we probably won't fully understand for decades to come. But what happened is people were no longer tied to these huge cities where their companies were located and could move where they wanted or move to places that were economically more viable for them. And that's kind of where Luzerne County comes into play. Luzerne County had a lot to offer these remote workers looking for a new place to live, especially in cities like New York and Philadelphia, because we're still only 2 hours away from both. But what we offer is a much lower cost of living, less congestion, and more of a freedom of movement due to the fact that Luzerne County is only 330,000 people, our cost of living is low, home prices are low. This made Luzerne County a hotspot for transplants from Philadelphia, but more importantly, New York, that we saw come over in waves to take advantage of this low cost of living and this kind of suburban atmosphere that the people in New York City have been craving. So this influx of remote workers being able to move from the city to areas such as ours, combined with the fact that home building was already reduced and we were already short 2+ million homes, created what was already an inventory problem and doubled it. This surge in demand, already with a reduced supply, really is what started the inventory crisis here in Luzerne County. And the effects of it, while known, may not be known specifically for years to come. The third factor, adding more fuel to the fire, is that in the last 10 years, there's been a huge uptick in investments in real estate properties. The allure of passive income through renting properties has created such a demand for investments into real estate on a both small and institutional level that has affected supply of housing as well. Now, this rise in rental demand has made Luzerne County a hotspot for investments. The low cost of living and relatively low price for homes in Luzerne County created a huge hotspot for investing. Actually, the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton area was ranked as like the number 2 spot for investment in real estate a year or two ago on a national level. So the same reason why people wanted to move to Luzerne County is the same factor that caused investors to want to buy in Luzerne County, therefore compounding the housing shortage. Now, while this phenomenon isn't only directed at Luzerne County, just to give you some context in a whole of the United States, in March of 2023, 27% of all housing purchases were by investors. So 1 out of every 4 houses purchased were purchased by an investor. That's less homes available for home buyers, compounding an already complicated situation towards the negative. Another issue with these investors in the market competing with home buyers is that a lot of these investors have cash. And so these cash offers have been easily beating out these mortgage financed offers, and the investors continue to swallow properties up at the cost of actual home buyers being able to win these bidding wars that we've been seeing. So now all this decrease in supply and increase in demand started to cause inflation. The prices of homes started to go up at unprecedented and historic levels. This implication will have far-reaching consequences in not only the housing market, but the United States economy as a whole. Now we get into the fourth compounding factor of the inventory shortage: higher interest rates. Not only have interest rates become higher in the last years, but the approval process has become more strict and stringent, learning from the 2008 crash. So approvals have tighter conditions, higher interest rates, which are causing home buyers to not be able to afford properties they were before. Now, to give some context to that, every 1% rise in interest rates reduces a home buyer's buying potential by 9 to 11%. Considering at the start of COVID, rates were historically low at 3 and 4%, and now they're at 7, 8%. Do the math to figure out how much this has impacted home buyers being able to afford prices that have been steadily going up over the last 5 years. So what we have is prices of homes going up and up and up, buyer demand also going up and up and up from the lack of supply, but with interest rates going up and up and up, the buyer's ability to afford not only these high interest rates, but these high prices has caused a huge problem. Now on top of that, and I know this is getting into the weeds here, but the high interest rates has also disincentivized home sellers from putting their house on the market. The reason why is if a home seller is sitting on a refinanced property, they refinanced during COVID to get a 2-3%, they're not going to be super willing to sell that house, even though they could make a lot of money with the low inventory right now, because they would then have to buy something at a much higher interest rate. So especially the baby boomer generation that might be thinking about selling and moving south to warmer weather, they're not going to do that because they don't want to give up their 3% right now to go get an 8% to move to Florida. So now they're actually not listing even though they would want to, because of the interest rates that are already making buyers not able to buy these inflated prices. So as you can see, how we got to the housing crisis is a very complex and multifaceted issue, and solving one of these issues in and of itself may not necessarily solve the problem. For instance, Everyone's praying that it's someday to be named later, the interest rates come down. Even if interest rates come down, what will happen is buyer demand will rise. People will be able to afford more house again, and more people will be incentivized to try to buy a house. But because the inventory is already historically low, that will create a problem where demand is higher than supply. And what happens from that? Prices go up even more, which makes it more unaffordable. So as you can see, is not one domino is going to take this whole thing down, where it's a complex layer that are all interconnected, which is causing this housing shortage. I'm Chris Madden, host of Living in Luzerne County, and while this complex information may be confusing, feel free to reach out. Drop a comment below if you want some clarification on anything else, or you have any questions that might help you. So as we can see is all of these issues are interconnected, but that does not mean doom and gloom. We still have buyers bidding on houses and getting their offers accepted. What you need to do is you need to do your due diligence to find a great real estate agent, which is going to be able to help you navigate these trying economic times to help you achieve your goals. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out. And again, I'm Chris Madden from Living in Luzerne County.